Mga balita naman sa labas ng bansa, Facebook CEO Marc Zuckerberg hinikayat ang mga dumalong leader ng iba't ibang bansa na sa ginaganap na APEC Summit sa Peru na suportahan ang internet connectivity at pirmahan ang Connectivity Declaration na kung saan naglalayo namang magkaroon ng internet connection sa buong mundo sa taong 2020.
Facebook CEO Marc Zuckerberg ang mga world leaders sa International APEC Summit na ginaganap sa Peru na mag-invest sa internet connectivity. Malaki ang role na ginagampanan ng maganda at mabilis na koneksyon sa internet. Ayon kay Zuckerberg, nakakatulong ito na maialis ang mga komunidad sa kahirapan, na pagbubuti ang global health at ang edukasyon sa buong mundo. Nanawagan din ang FB CEO sa Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation leaders na pirmahan na ang Connectivity Declaration. Isang inisyatiba na inihain niya sa United Nations noong nakaraang taon na naglalayong magkaroon ng internet connection sa buong mundo sa taong 2020. Kamakailan lamang ay marami ang pumuna sa Facebook dahil sa mga fake o maling balita at impormasyon na kumakalat sa pamamagitan ng Facebook. Marami ang nagrereklamo na walang ginagawa ang FB para mapigilan ito, lalo na sa role na ginampanan nito sa US election na itinanggi naman ni Zuckerberg. Pero dagdag nito, nakafocus ngayon ang kanilang kumpanya sa fake news issue. Noong nakaraang buwan lamang ay nakipag-team up ang FB sa Twitter at 30 iba pang kumpanya upang pag-usapan ang tumataas na trending ng mga fake news sa social media.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the founder and CEO of Facebook, Mr. Marc Zuckerberg.
Hey. Hey. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank President Kaczynski and Chairman Bustamante for inviting me to speak with you, be with you here this morning, and I want to thank all of you guys for joining us pretty early in the morning here. Later this month, my daughter Max will turn a year old, and I'm looking out and I see a lot of parents here, and I think one thing that we all know is that having a child changes a lot of things about your life, right? For one thing, it takes pretty normal, everyday things like bath time and makes them a pretty major event in the house. It makes you unreasonably excited anytime your child says anything that sounds even remotely like your name. But most importantly, it reminds us that we need to do everything that we can to make sure that our children, and children everywhere, can grow up in a world that is much, much better than our world today. Right? It's a reminder not to just get stuck in the day-to-day, but to focus on things that are really going to matter over the long term when your kids are grown up. Now, I'm an engineer, and a big part of the engineering mindset is this idea that you can take any system in the world and make it much, much better than it is today, right? Whether not just software or hardware, but also organizations, right? Companies, an education system, a healthcare system, governments, anything. You can take any system and make it a lot better than it is today. And that's what I want to talk about today. Daring to do great things and then sharing the prosperity with everyone. To me, one of the most inspiring stories in history was when President John F. Kennedy in the US in 1961 announced that by the end of the decade we were going to try to put a man on the moon. A lot of people thought that this was impossible. It took a lot of investment, but many people rallied, and when they succeeded, they didn't just achieve the goal, they created something entirely new and ended up pushing the entire economy forward for everyone. As Kennedy said, it's a time for greatness. And today, with accelerating progress in science and technology, our generation has the potential to do even more great things than at any other time in history. So take giving people a voice, for example. For a lot of the last century, there used to be just a handful of TV networks or newspapers in any given area. And now, almost 2 billion people have the power to connect with anyone they want, to share anything and have anyone around the world see it instantly, to create small businesses that are on a level playing field and have access to the same tools as the big guys have, to create movements to fight for the social change they want to see. Right? Connecting and giving 2 billion people a voice is a great thing to do. You know what's even better? Giving 7 billion people a voice. Now, or take education. You know, for most of the last century, education has worked in more or less the same way. You have students sitting in a class with a teacher, learning the same material in the same way at more or less the same pace. Today, we know that personalized learning is way better. But if you can give teachers the tools and the software to help students learn in the way that suits them best and to learn real-world skills that they can take with them, then early results show that students will learn as much as 50% more each year, and that can compound. So when you visit a school like this, it feels like the future, right? It feels like a startup. You know, there are students sitting together, working together with computers, with their personalized learning plans, and teachers actually have the time and tools to go and mentor students. You know, you get the feeling this is how more of the education system should work. So a couple of years ago, we started an engineering team with a bunch of teachers and folks who are working on personalized learning to build the tools to make it so that any teacher anywhere could use these personalized learning tools for free. And in the first year, 20 schools signed up to adopt personalized learning. In the second year, 100 schools signed up to adopt personalized learning. This year, we expect there to be many hundreds of more schools will upgrade and adopt personalized learning. Now, in the US, there are only about 25,000 middle and high schools. So our hope over the next decade is to help upgrade a majority of these schools to personalized learning and then start working globally as well. So giving 1 billion students a personalized education is a great thing to do. Or take curing diseases. I think that it's possible to cure, prevent, or manage all diseases within our children's lifetimes. Now, that may seem a little optimistic, but when you look at it, for most of human history, we made almost no progress on curing diseases. For thousands and thousands of years, there was very little progress. And then, about 100 years ago, we started applying the scientific method to curing diseases, and bam, progress just takes off. Right, since then, we've eradicated smallpox and are close to eradicating polio. We have vaccines to prevent meningitis and measles and many forms of influenza. We have antibiotics to treat life-threatening illnesses like tuberculosis and pneumonia. We produced statins to fight diabetes, to fight heart disease, insulin to fight diabetes, chemotherapy to fight cancer. We have reduced smoking, and we can even manage HIV as an ongoing condition. You know, one of my favorite facts in public health is that if you look back over the last 100 years, the average life expectancy has increased by about a quarter of a year per year. And that's been pretty steady progress. So if we can keep investing to even just keep making progress at the same rate, then by the end of this century, the average life expectancy will be around 100, which implies that we will have cured a lot of the diseases that prevent the vast majority of people from reaching that age today. So this raises a big question. If we can make so much progress curing diseases, why aren't we investing more to do that even faster for future generations? In the US, we invest about 50 times more in treating people who are sick than in finding cures so people don't get sick in the first place. You only would do that if you believed that people were always going to get sick, or that you couldn't cure all the diseases. And once we realized what the trajectory is, and that we actually can make progress on all this, then I think that we all have a responsibility to invest way more in this to make more progress for our children and for future generations. You know, what greater thing can we all do than cure all diseases for our children and future generations? Or take keeping everyone safe. You know, we live in a relatively peaceful time, but there's still far too much violence. So we're building artificial intelligence that can go out and scan and flag content that might lead to violence, whether that's a person who might harm themselves or a terrorist who might harm other people. We've built tools like Safety Check that can help people know that their loved ones and the people they care about are safe in the middle of a disaster. So building technology and security that helps keep people safe, that helps people not have to go into the middle of these dangerous situations, that's a great thing to do. So these are some of the great things that I think that we should dare to do. Now, I'm optimistic about all this, but as an engineer, I'm also realistic about how hard it's going to be. We can work to give people a voice, but we also need to do our part to stop the spread of hate and violence and misinformation. We can build artificial intelligence to fight terrorism, but we also need to make sure that we protect people's privacy. And we can invest a lot more in curing all diseases for the future generations, but we need to understand what those trade-offs are for us today. But our generation can achieve all these things. And that starts with working on the one that ties all of them together, which is connectivity. In order to do all of these things, we first need to connect people. Connecting people means a few different things. You know, it means compassion, helping people, helping to bring people together and realize that, you know, for all these things, we're all in them together. It means ideas, you know, helping us learn faster and get exposure to people and cultures all over the world. And it means opportunity, you know, opening everything the world has to offer to each and every one of us. Now, we know that connecting people and enabling a free flow of ideas and trade is the path to doing more great things and to creating the greatest overall prosperity. But as we're learning this year, in election after election, you know, even as globalization might grow the overall pie of prosperity, it also creates inequality. You know, it helps some people and it hurts others. And we can't afford to leave anyone behind. So we have a fundamental choice in how we choose to address this inequality. We can disconnect, risk less prosperity, and hope jobs we've lost come back. Or we can connect more, try to do more great things, try to work on even greater prosperity, and then work to aggressively share that prosperity with everyone. Now, look, I don't think that there's any question that the second path is better, but we need to acknowledge that it's also a lot harder. Right? Disconnecting is relatively easy, but connecting requires making big investments in infrastructure and generating the political will to make hard long-term decisions. Right now, about 4 billion people in the world, you know, more than half of the world, is not connected to the internet. And this is really important because research shows that for every 10 people who get online, about 1 person gets lifted out of poverty and almost 1 new job gets created. So if we can connect the 4 billion people who are unconnected, we can lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. According to the World Bank, for every 10% increase in connectivity, a developing country's GDP grows by up to 2%. So if you take a country that has half of its population connected, and you connect the other half, you can increase GDP by as much as 10 points. So connecting everyone will lead to dramatic economic growth and lifting millions, hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. And even more, connectivity enables all the other great things that we want to do as a society. So, think about this. If we want our children to have access to the best personalized learning tools and software, if we want our scientists to have access to all of the information and be able to collaborate with anyone around the world in order to cure all diseases, if we want to build the most powerful AI to help keep us safe, then first we need to connect people. Now, connectivity is just as important in developed countries. It enables trade. It helps us understand each other. A lot of the biggest problems that the world faces will require global solutions, and that means that in order to reach these solutions, we need to work together and connect more. So that is why I think we need to make connectivity and connectivity infrastructure a much higher priority on each of our agendas. Today, the world spends about $400 billion a year on connectivity infrastructure. And to put that in perspective, we spend about 16 times more on health. But actually, infrastructure investments are decreasing in a lot of places. Since the financial crisis, more than half of G20 countries have cut their infrastructure investment budgets. Now again, this level of investment might make sense if you believed that we were only going to be able to make incremental progress in growing economies and lifting people out of poverty and in education and in health. But once we realize that we can do great things, right, that we can give a personalized education to all children, that we can cure all diseases for future generations, and that connectivity is the key enabler to do those things, then I think that we should be making this a much higher priority on our agenda than it is today. So today, there are three main barriers that are preventing people from connecting, and we can fix them all. The first is availability, right? The idea is you might have a phone, but there's no network around you to connect to. That's about 1.5 billion people around the world. The second is affordability, right? So there may be a network around you, but you can't afford either to buy a phone or to connect to the network. And that's about another 1 billion people. And the third barrier is awareness. And this is actually, interestingly enough, the biggest barrier that has the most people in it, is people who have a phone and there is a network around them that they can connect to, and they can afford to connect to it for not a large portion of their income, but they're not sure why they would want to. So we need to go address all of these problems, and there's something for all of us to do here. So at Facebook, we're building new technology that, like solar-powered planes, right, that fly up in the air for months at a time and beam internet access to parts of the world that don't have access today. We're empowering local entrepreneurs to build businesses by giving them infrastructure so they can sell connectivity and internet access to their local community. And we're working with local operators in more than 50 countries to provide free basic internet services to people on mobile devices. And so far, our programs have connected more than 40 million people to the internet. So it's a good start. Other companies like Microsoft and Google are working on this as well. And that's really important because I think we all need to use the technology that we're building to help connect more people. Now, governments have an important role to play here too. You need to invest more in the infrastructure to connect people, to open up more spectrum, and to make it easier to experiment with new technology. But the most important thing to do is to recognize that connectivity is the path to enabling and achieving all of the other goals you have. And we need to make connectivity a much higher priority. So that's why I'm going to be asking all of the leaders that I meet with here to sign on to the Connectivity Declaration that we announced last year at the United Nations, to make connectivity a higher priority and to pledge to help connect more of their people to the internet. Now, connecting everyone isn't going to be quick or easy, but if we make the right decisions and the right investments now, we can connect billions of more people in the next decade. And connecting billions of more people is a great thing to do. And it will lead the way for our generation to be able to do even more great things. So if we all agree that the path forward for the world isn't to disconnect and work together less, but to connect more, to try to do even more great things, as a path to creating greater prosperity and then sharing that with everyone, then I think it's pretty clear that this is just the beginning of that path and what we need to do next. In August, I met a young woman named Mariana Costa. She lives right here in Lima. And a couple of years ago, she founded a startup called La Laboratoria that helps women from low-income backgrounds train to become web developers. You know, her mission is to go out and find talent where no one else is looking. And Mariana says that most of the women who show up and join her program have no idea their potential going in. But within a few weeks, they're building their first web app, their first apps, and within months, they're engineers who are ready to join the workforce. And today, more than 70% of the women who have gone through La Laboratoria are employed. Mariana says that they're an example of what's possible. That they're changing not only their lives, but they're changing their whole communities and their cities. And she says that the ultimate goal is to change entire countries for the better. Now, talent is equally distributed around the world. But today, opportunity isn't. And I don't know what the women who went through Mariana's program will go on to do. But I do know that if we work to give more people around the world access to all of the opportunities of the internet, then all of our children will live in a much safer, healthier, and more prosperous world when they grow up. That's a future where we dare to do great things and work to aggressively share the prosperity with everyone in the world. That is a future that I'm excited to work with all of you to build. Thank you.